All right, so this is a video for the last module in Linguistics 102. This is animal communication. In this module, we're really taking a step back from everything that we've looked at so far around human communication and putting that in the context and comparing it to communication more broadly in the animal kingdom. How do animals communicate, and how do their communications relate to the specific form of communication that linguists are interested in, which is language? So we start with a quick look at non-vocal communication. Things like scent, light, electricity, color, posture, facial expressions, lots of different things that animals use to communicate beyond vocal signals. Vocal signals being something they also do, of course. And also looking at what these different signals can communicate from the location of something interesting, personal identity, mood, attitudes, mating information, of course, and so on. And then next, we look at the structure of communications. So the heart of this is the idea of the sign, this unit of communication. And this uses tokens of a signifier. So a signifier is kind of like a word, but it doesn't have to be linguistic, right? And tokens are individual instances of that to indicate the concept or thing that is signified. We have different kinds of signs, so we can talk about iconic, indexical, symptomatic, and symbolic signs. So we're getting gradually more abstracted from the thing that they're representing or trying to indicate. Signals, things, signs that are meant to trigger a specific action. Not all communications are signals, but some are. The distinction between graded and discrete signs. And this idea that a very large portion of non-human animal communication seems to be stimulus bound. So it's triggered by a very local stimulus that then triggers a communication behavior. The next section, the birds and the bees, or the bees and the birds, talk about bee communication, which is that whole fancy dance that has different aspects to it, different qualities that really do illustrate things like redundancy, which is a factor of human language as well as other forms of communication, indexicality, gradients, that kind of thing. Bird communication, distinguishing bird calls from bird songs. It's a distinction that I didn't know about until I started learning this stuff. Interesting distinction there. What it is that birds communicate and how, as well as in their closing, a really interesting idea, some very close parallels with human language around lateralization and critical period. Okay, and then we get into non-human primates, who have been a particular focus of linguistic research in non-human animals over the decades. Seeing some evidence of being able to learn a limited form of human language, most successfully apparently with signed languages, because their manual dexterity is closer to ours than their vocal range is to our vocal range. And what else? Yeah, the question of socialization and so on. So some really interesting questions, and how do we know, when they are reproducing things that look like human language, how do we test how close that is to actual human language in terms of how it's working up here. And then we have a really nice, what I think, catalog of features that we can use to compare different communicative systems. So rather than saying, well, this is human language and this isn't, and sort of getting vague and maybe accidentally moving the goalposts because we don't have a clear idea of what it is that's important to us, in this section we get a really nice rundown of some concrete identifiable features that we can test. interchangeability, feedback, specialization, semanticity. Some of these terms are a little bit funny, but anyway, arbitrariness, discreteness, displacement, and productivity, duality of patterning, tradition, or you could say social transmission, prevarication, can you lie, learnability, and reflexiveness, can the language communicate about the language? So a lot of really interesting aspects here, and learning about them, I know for some of them, like prevarication, it isn't necessarily the case that the property that human languages possess is inherently a preferable or higher value option, I guess. So it really does help us to treat these in a more objective way when we're comparing communication systems. Anyway, so I hope that this module is a really helps you to bring together what we've been learning and look at language, like I say, from a broader perspective, look at it in a broader context, because language isn't this isolated thing. It exists in a context. There are things that are like it but are not exactly it, and this is one way to start expanding our perspective, so to speak. Anyway, that's all for now. So thanks for watching.